Okay, I'd like to call our Finance Committee meeting to order, please. Board members, please take your spots. Do we have any public comments? Do we have any public speakers? Okay, we have no public speakers. I need a motion to approve the minutes of October 26th. Can I get a motion, please? Second? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Committee work plan is not changed, so we can move on from there. Gary.
First, there is no budget watch. There is no budget watch this month. We do have a finance watch that Pat McCoy will deliver.
Good morning. Finance Watch appears on page 13 of your yellow committee book. We have one transaction to report this month. It's a $150 million Bridges and Tunnels bond anticipation note. And this was put into the market on November 10th. And the source of payment on the note is expected to be a issuance of long-term bonds in 2010. The proceeds will be used all for TBTA existing approved capital projects. The note was sold competitively, and we were pleased to get 9 bids on the note. The winning bid was won by Jeffries and Company with a TIC of 0.339%. The cover bid was from Merrill Lynch at 0.374%. The highest bid was 0.519%. So the ban matures November 15th, 2010. So it's a 1-year note. Right. We would need to come back for authorization to issue a new ban from the board. Right. So.
Let me also mention, just to follow up, one thing that came up last time we talked about similar issuances, which was the negotiations with the state, and Pat was again successful in the state understanding that the application of the issuance fee needed to be in conjunction with what it is that we were going to do when this became an actual was replaced by regular bond proceeds. So we'll pay the issuance fee on the ban, but not when it's replaced. So again, Pat did a very nice job in accomplishing, in this case, future savings against the issuance charge.
Thank you. So again, the winning bid was a 0.339%. That was about 3 basis points through the 1-year SIFMA rate, or I should say MMD rate on that day. It was 37 basis points was the 1-year rate. The net interest cost is $512,000, and with all the costs built in, the all-in TIC is 1.42% on the note. So happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay.
Okay.
Sorry?
In approving the issuance of the ban, do we approve the issuance of the bond?
Yes, the bonds are approved. Yes.
All right. Let me just. There's no budget watch this month because we're now in the budget cycle, and the budget will be presented. The final proposed 2010 budget and financial plan will be given to you for information on Wednesday. So we'll be walking through a presentation, relatively modest presentation, on Wednesday on the new budget. Let me just highlight, I guess, just a couple of very modest things in advance of that. One is we have now begun to see the proceeds of the new state taxes that were passed in the spring. And as we've said a couple of times here, we don't have the capacity to look inside the state forecast for the remainder of the year to make a judgment. But nonetheless, the two good things are that over $700 million has now been received into the accounts, into the MTA accounts from the payroll mobility tax and the other fees that were enacted in the spring, and so that's good. And the better news is that over $600 million has already been transferred down to the MTA from from the controller and the tax and finance department, which is even better news because, as we know, sometimes money gets lost coming down the thruway, and in this case, it's all managed to make its way down here, so that's good. As everybody here knows, we forecast the receipt of just over $1 billion from these proceeds for the course of 2009, for the amount of the year that we will be receiving, and so we still have a ways to go to be comfortable that our forecasts are accurate. But in any event, what we've seen so far is encouraging on that. So I had said last month that as we knew anything, we would continue to report because it's an area of great concern. And so far, like I said, so good. So on Wednesday, we'll go through the budget. Do you want to pick up the agenda, and then we'll come back to the reso?
The next item are the reports and information items. There is a correction on the agenda. The first is a review and assessment of the Finance Committee charter, which is an action item. On your agenda, it's listed as an information item, so we'll come back to that. And the second is the one information item that we do have, which is the station maintenance receivable update for this year, and that is on page 25 of your book. And according to the report in the book, it will indicate that two counties, Orange and Nassau, are still outstanding. We have been in touch with both counties, and both have indicated that the check is being processed right now. Orange County mailed the check out last Tuesday, and Nassau County committed to mail one out Friday. So by next month, we should be able to report that all counties have complied.
This is where you make the LIE joke to the throughway joke, but yeah.
Okay, that is the only...
Mark has.
Don't we have the right to intercept something if we don't get it?
Yeah, there's an intercept, but again, I think...
It takes a long time to do. Is that? I was just sort of interested in the timing of that. I'm sure we have exercised it at some point. No.
Well, I don't think we've exercised it against the city, although sometimes we've contemplated it. But with respect to our county funding partners, it is the purpose of.
I noted that it was the counties did not include any of the 5 boroughs.
Right, that's true. It's the other counties. The purpose of highlighting it was that it hadn't been received. This is the month that we report on it. There should not be a dilemma here. They are aware that there is an intercept. They don't want to see the intercept take place. So that the joke about the check, but notwithstanding, this shouldn't be a problem. The intercept is cumbersome but it's absolutely precisely clear in the statute that the intercept is available. So I don't think this will be an area that we'll see difficulty. We've seen difficulty in other areas. Obviously, there's still pay-as-you-go capital that's outstanding from the County of Nassau. There is remaining disputes between us on general subsidy levels for Long Island Bus, which we'll talk about in a minute or two. We'll talk about for a minute or two on Wednesday. But with respect to here, this should be okay.
If there are no other questions, we'll move to the action items. The first, Mr. Chair, is the review of the charter.
Yeah, this month we have our charter review action item. A copy of the charter is in your committee materials. I'd like to point out that the revision in paragraph 4 of the charter. When the committee charters were first drafted, the purpose of the charter was to spell out the role and responsibilities of the committee. This revision rounds out the charter and provides a complete picture of the working relationship between the committee and the staff. It outlines the responsibilities of the staff to provide to the committee all the relevant information regarding matters before the committee. It also requires the staff to provide all the information the committee needs to perform its monitoring and oversight function. Can I have a motion to approve the charter as revised? Get a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
The next item is the bond resolution on page 27.
Let me just take a second and introduce the topic. As you know, in January, traditionally in January of each year, you authorize through a resolution and accompanying documents the issuance during the course of the year of our anticipated needs for raising capital for the raising money for the capital program. This is unusual in that this has not happened recently, but in this year, the amount of money that we anticipated from the cash flow analysis that was done leading into the calendar year that we're in is inadequate to support the needs of the spending needs of the capital construction company and the operating agencies for the rest of the year. We did an analysis earlier in the year when we saw some shortfalls in the cash flows. We did a analysis, and it appeared to us to be principally related to timing of federal reimbursements. As the year progressed, this tightened, and you ended up in the number that we're in now, which is about $200 million. And Greg and his group did an analysis to attempt to identify what were the principal drivers of that miss. So let me just first make sure that everybody understands what it is that we're talking about. We do a cash flow analysis at the beginning of the year, attempting to estimate what our needs will be on an overall spending amount, which includes obviously spending from sources other than bond funds. And then there's an allocation as amongst all of the spending, and then what's left is what it is that we raise in the capital markets. Here we had anticipated, I guess, about $2.3 billion for the course of this calendar year. That number will turn out to be about $2.5 billion on the assumption that you approve the additional $200 million that we're asking for. The analysis that Greg's group did suggested, and this was almost exclusively in the capital construction company, although there were ups and downs in the operating agencies as well, but principally it was large sort of ramp-up expenses, real estate expenses, and some insurance payments that the cash flow can't predict, because cash flow typically takes an entire project and then spreads it smoothly, and what happens is there are some large payments that happen that aren't smooth, and so when they take place they can actually disturb what would otherwise be the cash flow. It isn't as a result, at least as our analysis so far has indicated, a result of overspending within the projects. So nonetheless, what's in front of you is an increase in the authorization of another $200 million. The reason why the numbers are a little bit confusing in the document is because there's still issuances left this calendar year within the existing authorization, and it is the sum of the 200 plus what hasn't been issued so far that will end up equaling the numbers that are in the first paragraph.
Any questions?
Gary, what, when or how would the CPRB get involved in a process that's associated with this? You were talking about cost overruns, and that sounds like it's sort of a bit of a slippery concept.
I tried to not talk about cost overruns because I don't think that what we're seeing here is effectively cost overruns. What we're seeing here is the...
No, I understand
okay,
that that's not happening here,
right.
But what I'm saying is that theoretically it could be, and
yes.
you weren't clear on even whether it had happened or not. You thought maybe it hadn't.
Right. Well, CPRB would be an issue in the event that we either overexpended, which we don't have the ability to do. So actually, it's not an issue because we have the CPRB, approval process is a firm cap. You cannot go back, and what you can do is move money from within program elements with CPRB approval, and that happens from time to time. There's usually a CPRB amendment process in most years for that very purpose. That would have that could have an effect on cash flow and borrowing. That's not what this is. This really is about this mismatch between what we forecast the
It's
cash
just time.
flow to be
Okay.
and what we actually need in terms of the raising the money in the markets.
And aren't you basically saying that the CPRB approval is not the fiscal year period per se? That is
Sure. The CPRB approval is the plan period.
Right.
So here what we're dealing with is the board process, because the board process we do on a 12-month calendar. Yes.
Yeah. And just following from that.
It's not about the bond cap, in other words, right?
Right. What I'm hearing from you is that all things being equal, if we do the extra $200 million this year, if this were the only variance, we'd be doing $200 million less in the future.
Yes, that's correct, if all other things were equal.
Yeah.
What is true is that, again, because of the firm cap in CPRB approval and board processes, on an aggregate basis, you can't over borrow what it is that you said you were going to borrow. There's no capacity to do that. So it all has to be, justified at the end, justified in a numerical sense. So this again is, theoretically this is simply timing. And again, we did the analysis, and I say we, I mean really Greg and his group did the analysis. It appears to be these large items that are inside the capital construction company on the mega projects that appear to be the principal drivers this year. If you were to be precisely accurate, though, you would have to actually do an assessment of all, $5 or $6 billion in spending, which we did not have the ability to do in this time frame.
I'm curious as to why we have .2 in here under purpose. We've talked about needing to do an extra $200 million of capital projects, but then we append something in here about refundings. Why is
Where am I reading?
the second purpose? I'm assuming this is new money. The $200 million that we're hoping to issue is new money. Why do we have this?
The 200 is new money, that's correct. This language appears in the staff summaries and in the resolutions whenever we bring them to the board for approval. It just reaffirms the board's authorization for staff to undertake refundings as deemed economically beneficial to the MTA.
And just as we have policies for variable rate debt and swaps, do we have policies that set forth any PV savings thresholds for doing refundings?
We do
Pat?
not know.
Is that something that maybe we should think about doing?
Yeah, although I don't think we do not have a current refunding that's anticipated. This is not about that.
Well, maybe we could put that on the list to talk about for January.
No, I think that's
and-
fine. Sure.
Great.
Any other questions? I need a motion. Second? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Back to you, Gary.
That moves us to the procurements for MTA headquarters. There is one procurement for Skyline, and this is on page 49 of your book. It's a web-based contract compliance system for the MTA, and it's a total cost of $765,087.54.
Any questions?
I would just note the gap between the two acceptable, the two bids that were being evaluated at the end, and presumably the benefit of going off the shelf to the extent possible is a huge difference here, and I trust that becomes that we try to emphasize off the shelf to the extent possible when doing software stuff, because it really saves a lot. And
You're absolutely right, Jim, and that's why this item came back for those questions, and this is an off-the-shelf product, and that is why it's so much cheaper.
Any other questions?
I have a comment. I want the committee to understand that it took nearly 2 years on the part of Diversity Committee looking at various options here. There's also the issue of we simply didn't have as much money as the second bidder would have liked us to have. So the crowning glory for this is that this is an off-the-shelf item that's been used by other agencies, most notably the School Dormitory Authority, so our Chief Diversity Officer is well familiar with the program and comfortable with the way it works. So thanks.
Any other questions? About a motion to accept? Second? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Metro North has one non-competitive procurement on page 51 of your books, and that's for $255,000 to provide software support services.
I've got a motion. Any discussion? I need a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Long Island Railroad has one non-competitive procurement for $125,000, and this is to provide on-site, off-site technical services to support their automated material handling.
Any questions? Need a motion? Second? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
There are no items for Long Island Bus. Bridges and Tunnels has one procurement, and that is for $144,233, and that is with Verizon Network, and it's to provide labor and materials to install conduit and fiber optic cable on the Henry Hudson Bridge facility.
Any questions or discussion? Motion? Second? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
New York City Transit has a total of 3 procurements for a total value of $12,877,710. Of those, 2 are non-competitive for $3,877,000. One of those is for continued software services for $3,277,042, and the second is to provide preventive and remedial maintenance for storage units, and that is a total value of $600,668. The competitive procurement is to provide temporary staff for project design and construction. There are 4 firms that the contracts are with for $9 million each. The total budgeted amount, however, is limited to $9 million.
Any questions? Can I get a motion? Second.
Seconded.
Anybody ever approved? Anybody against? Carried.
There are no items for MTA Bus. Capital Construction has 2 items with a total value of $107,208,944. The first is for modification of the Fulton Street Transit Center contract, and that is for $22,258,944. The second is for East Side Access Consulting contracts for $84,950.
It's 84 million.
I'm sorry, $84,950,000.
Any questions? Get a motion, please? Second? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
That's it.
Okay, Special Finance Committee meeting with the board on Wednesday, November the 18th, 9:30. We'll present the following reports: updated forecast for 2009, MTA 2010 final proposed budget, and November Finance Plan 2010 to 2013. Our next meeting is Monday, December 14th at 11:45. I need a motion to adjourn. Any opposed? Carried.